Hello, boxing fans around the world. Thank you once again for joining us on TalkinFight for another episode featuring Christian from the Friday night panel, where he's been discussing Olympic boxing in Tokyo. Well, Christian, it was a great weekend. Lots of interesting bouts. You're going to recap as day 9, though?
Absolutely. We've got a lot of ground to cover today, Graham. We had walkovers, we had knockouts, we had disqualifications. So there's a bit of ground to cover today. So let's jump right in with the morning session from day 9. We started off with the women's featherweight quarterfinals. All day 9 was all quarterfinal and semifinal action. So we're getting down to it. Things are getting exciting. We're getting into medalists now. So we start off with the women's flyweight quarters. Saw Busanaz Kakaroglu of Turkey defeat Jutmas Jitpong of Thailand. This was a 5-0 sweep. Kakaroglu was top seeded in this, but had looked a little shaky in her first outing at Tokyo. Here, though, she looked a lot more on form, a lot more of what we're used to seeing from her. Now, Jitpong had been formidable, but Kakaroglu just outclassed her across 3 rounds. And now the Turkish fighter is on to the semifinals and is guaranteed at least a bronze medal moving forward. Hsiao Wen Huang of Chinese Taipei beat Nina Radovanovic of Serbia in another 5-0 sweep yesterday as well. So Huang is tall and really lanky here, and she uses that to her advantage, that extra reach to her advantage. Now, she's not the most thrilling to watch, and she's not technically great by any means from a technical standpoint. But what she is doing seems to be working, and she's going to be trying to use that same reach advantage against Kakaroglu as well. But, Kakaroglu is going to be a more better-rounded fighter than Radovanovic was, who did give her best, but never quite figured out the distance that she needed to here, and routinely saw her rushes being cut off. So Huang moves around a lot and doesn't like staying in one place for very long. And she used that to her advantage. We'll see if it helps moving forward, though. In the men's quarterfinals for the featherweights, we saw Duke Reagan of the United States take out Kurt Walker of Ireland in a 3-2 split. So Reagan is now guaranteed at least a bronze as well, as he cuts down the strong run of Walker, who eliminated the top seed in the round of 16. Now, this one was about as close as it gets. Reagan won the first round pretty clearly on all 5 cards. Walker won 3 cards in the second round. Now, what this meant was that those 3 judges, in this case being the Algerian, Lithuanian, and Kazakhstani judge, had to fight on the line at this point in time, really, in the third round. Walker needed all 3 of those judges to rule in his favor going into the third, whereas Reagan only needed 1 at this point because he had the 2 other cards locked up for the win. So barring catastrophe, that is, of course. Now, the third round was close, but Walker was the one pushing here. Now, he did win on 4 out of 5 of those cards, but he didn't sway the Lithuanian judge's card here, and Reagan ends up going through as a result. This is a tough loss for Walker, who had a really good run running up to Tokyo, and it really kind of looked like he was going to pull this one out of the fire. It was this close near the very end of it. But not enough at the end of the day. So we also saw Samuel Taki of Ghana's Black Bombers take out Kyber David Avila of Colombia in another 3-2 split. Now, this one wound up with the exact same kind of scenario as we saw in the previous fight, the Reagan-Walker bout there. Avila swept the first round, and Taki won won 3 cards in the second round. So once again, Taki needed all three of the same exact judges in the third round to win. Unlike Walker, though, he got those 3 judges that he needed. He actually swept the entire round. Avila had great effort in the first, but he just basically burned through most of his energy. And the younger, taller Taki just had more in the tank by the end of the third round. By the third, Avila was running on fumes, basically, and it showed. Taki did enough to chase him down, and that's going to advance him to the semifinal and guarantee him at least a bronze. In the men's welterweight semifinal action, Pat McCormick of Great Britain beat Aidan Walsh. Well, I say beat. No, this was a walkover. This is the walkover we were talking about earlier. Now, you guys will know that usually walkovers happen when a fighter, picks up some cuts in a previous bout or an injury in a fight or, maybe gets sick. Thankfully, we haven't had any COVID walkovers yet, but that would be the sort of thing that would give us a walkover. This sort of stuff happens. This one, though, is a little different. This one is a walkover due to an ankle injury that Walsh suffered while celebrating his quarterfinal win over Mervyn Clare of Mauritius. So he was pulled just a few hours before the fight. He had been hoping to fight, but scans revealed enough of an issue that they weren't going to let him go through. So at the end of the day, Walsh is going to have to limp away with a bronze here, whereas McCormick gets to go on to fight for gold. In the men's middleweight quarterfinals, we saw Alexander Kisniak of Ukraine defeat Yuri Sedano of the Dominican Republic in a 4-1 split. Now, this was an action-packed fight that got tense in the second round and remained quite tense even after things were over, as Sedano was frankly surprised, and it showed that he had lost this fight. His style basically did give Kisniak a bit of a headache in the first round, but all in all, it stayed an aggressive fight through 3 rounds, and it was Sedano who blinked first, running out of steam in the third as Kisniak just kept hunting. At the end of the day, he was a better all-around fighter, and Kisniak's conditioning just really carried him through here. Sorry, bit of a technical issue there. Sorry, normally Sedano is a little bit better defensively than what we actually did get to see here. But this is the Olympics, and if you can't pull it out on the day, it doesn't count for much. So this is going to be a tough one for him to swallow, but he is not moving on this one. We also saw Yuri Marshall of the Philippines defeat Armin Darcinian of Armenia in a knockout here. Here's our knockout on the day. This was a first-round knockout. Darcinian, who is the nephew of Vic Darcinian, some of you guys will know that name, who also wound up on the wrong end of his family's mixed history against Filipino opponents. Darcinian also complained a lot post-fight that the shot was actually behind the head. It absolutely was not, and anyone who's seen the fight or a replay of the shot can see that with their own eyes. This was pretty cut and dry. And we're just saying this to avoid any controversy here. This was a clean knockout. Marshall moves on to the semis to face Alexander Kisniak, and that is going to be one of the bouts to watch for sure. That's going to be entertaining. Moving into the light heavyweight semifinals, Ben Whitaker of Great Britain took out Imam Katyev of the Russian Olympic Committee in a 4-1 split. Now, this particular bout was always going to be about who could kind of impose their style on this matchup here. More specifically on whether Katyev, who is a bit shorter and stockier, was going to be able to make Whitaker fight on the inside. Now, we've talked about Katyev in a couple of his past fights before this. He's the one who's basically just steamrolled his way through his opponents, working on not so much style and technique as pure aggression and his clinch. He likes to lean heavy in his clinches and things like that. So what he really wanted out of this fight was to move onto the inside of Whitaker, and Whitaker was just not going to let him. He really wanted to force Whitaker to engage up close, and he just couldn't. Whitaker moved around and used his jab throughout and his superior height and reach, flustering Katyev for 3 solid rounds. Well, they say 3 rounds here. The judges actually gave 3 judges gave Katyev the first round, and I'm not really sure where that came from because honestly, the fight didn't look all that different from round to round. So, what changed their minds after comes down to, a little bit more aggression from Whitaker in the later in the fight. But that's really kind of what we've been looking at here. And as we look at the past Olympics and moving into this one here, is that, officiating has gotten a lot better at Tokyo, compared to London and especially compared to Rio. There are still some questions among consistency among the judges from a round-to-round perspective, let alone fight-to-fight. Whitaker definitely deserved to win this fight, and the right man is moving forward on this one. But we saw 3 judges give the first round to Katyev, and what was some interesting decision-making there. I digress. I'm starting to ramble here. In the men's super heavyweight quarterfinal, saw Bakoder Jalalov of Uzbekistan take out Satish Kumar of India in a 5-0 sweep here. Jalalov dominated here, but Kumar, it should be noted here, is India's first ever super heavyweight Olympian. And he didn't just let Jalalov walk right over him either. He gave him his best, and, Jalalov showed him a little bit of respect after the fight. So Kumar is going to be able to leave this one with his head held high. Was this a close fight? No, it really wasn't. But it wasn't a complete walkover either. We're going to see more from the Indians as when we as we get closer to Paris 2024. I think we're going to see a strong Indian contingent coming back again. Fraser Clark, though, of Great Britain, took out Murad Aliyev of France. Now, here's our disqualification. And if you haven't seen this one, you're going to have to go back and watch it. because I'm not going to offer too much of my own opinion on this one here, because this was a huge controversy, as Aliyev is disqualified in the second round for fouls, specifically leading with the head, holding, and headbutting. Now, had he been warned about this? Absolutely, he was warned about this. There was already a cut on Clark at this point in time. Clark wasn't thrilled winning this way, but he was still happy to win, of course, and at this point is guaranteed a bronze medal. Aliyev, though, was absolutely furious and refused to leave the ring for over an hour after the bout had ended. Fortunately, that did mark the end of the morning session, so we had that hour for him to sit and sulk. Again, whether or not it was, a good call to disqualify or not, I'm not weighing in on this one here. I'll let you guys do that in the comments. But he did sit for an hour in the ring afterwards without leaving. So that takes us up to the afternoon session, where we start off with the women's flyweight quarterfinals. This Tsukimi Nakimi of Japan defeat Ingrid Valencia of Colombia in a 5-0 sweep. Now, Valencia, you guys will remember, won bronze in Rio, but she's ended up going home from Tokyo empty-handed, losing to host country fighter who just moved around, darted in and out too quickly, landing little flurries and then getting away before Valencia could do much in return. She's the second qualified second women's boxing medalist from Japan to qualify so far in these Olympics, following Yuri, who's set for the gold medal match at the featherweight division. In the round of 16, we saw Valencia trade plenty of fire against fellow veteran Mary Kom, but Kom doesn't move anymore like Nakimi does, and Nakimi's feet were just too quick and just presented too much trouble for Valencia to get past. Nakimi now guaranteed at least a bronze medal. Stoica Krestova of Bulgaria took out Yuan Chang of China in a 4-1 split. Now, this one was, I keep saying, if you go back and watch one fight, if you had to go back and miss one fight on the day, this is probably the one to miss, if I'm being perfectly honest. This was a fairly dull affair and kind of abnormally slow for a flyweight bout. Krestova's work at the end of the day was just a little bit better. They had similar styles, so a lot of this fight was spent staring and posturing and trying to get the measure of the other fighter here. A lot more so than you do see in a lot of Olympic bouts. Krestova, who fought at London in 2012 but did not go to Rio in 2016, had flirted with the idea of retiring for a while, feeling that top-level success was probably past her at this point in her career. But at 35 years old, she is going home with at least a bronze medal from these games, so good for her. In the men's featherweight quarterfinals, saw Laszlo Alvarez of Cuba take out Chatchai Dechabuti of Thailand in a 3-2 split. Now, Alvarez won bronze in London as a bantamweight and again at Rio as a lightweight. So he's moved around a little bit in his weight divisions here. He's got a bronze guaranteed here, but he's hoping to do a little bit more at Tokyo. A lot of people are not going to remember just how good an amateur fighter Butti is, and well, I guess was and still is. Because prior to Tokyo, his talk was that this was going to be his last Olympics. And if so, he goes out without an Olympic medal, unfortunately. We've seen him fight at 3 Olympics so far now, and he is just an he's a terrific fighter. And he pushed Alvarez to his absolute limit here in an extremely close fight. But if this was it for him, there's no shame in the way he went out. This fight could have easily gone the other way on just a couple of small things, could have sent this the other way. Absolutely. We saw Albert Batagaziev of the Russian Olympic Committee take out Senbatar Erdenabat of Mongolia in another 3-2 split. Now, Batagaziev is the number 2 seed and was down 5-0 in the cards after the first round and was down 20-18 on 3 cards going into the third. So this meant that he actually absolutely needed something special going into the third. And we see that a lot. However, it is extremely rare to actually get to see that something special actually happen in the third, or have a fighter actually be able to materialize that in the third round. But according to one judge, in this case the Algerian judge Mohamed Besmi, Batagaziev did it by forcing a standing 8 count on Erdenabat in the third. So he got a 10-8 round out of this. So that meant there were 4 cards that were scored 29-28, 2 apiece, and 1 card, Besmi's, which had a score of 28-28, who chose Batagaziev as his preferred winner on a tied card, which is what put Batagaziev over the top on this one. So absolute heartbreak for Erdenabat here, who loses this one on literally about as close as you possibly can get at an Olympic Games here. In the men's welterweight semifinals, we saw Ronil Iglesias of Cuba defeat Andrei Zemkovoy of the Russian Olympic Committee in a 5-0 sweep. I wouldn't have called this one going into this beforehand. I thought Zemkovoy was going to put up a lot more of a fight. I thought this was going to be a lot closer. Iglesias is going to move on to face Great Britain's Pat McCormick for the gold. The 34-year-old Zemkovoy, though, is still very capable, a 2012 bronze medalist and standout international for years now. But at this level of the game, he starts to fall short and just could not hold up to the all-around skill set of Iglesias. So Zemkovoy gets another bronze medal while Iglesias looks for his second Olympic gold, following the one in the now defunct light welterweight category back in 2012. He also won bronze at Beijing in 2008, but did not medal in 2016. The men's middleweight quarterfinals, we saw Herbert Souza of Brazil defeat Amil Khan Amankul of Kazakhstan in another 3-2 split on the day here. This was close through the first 2 rounds. 4 judges gave Souza the last one, and he's through to the semifinals, guaranteed at least a bronze. Souza is a real, he brings a lot of energy to the ring, and even when things aren't going his way, he's still got a big smile on his face, and you'd never be able to tell that he was fighting from behind just from the type of energy and the confidence that he exudes. He's a really fun fighter to watch, and I definitely recommend keeping an eye on this guy moving forward. Gleb Bakshi of the Russian Olympic Committee took out Denis Valsaint Jr. of Haiti in a 5-0 sweep. Now, Valsaint is actually a Miami native representing Haiti, and he really tried to rough this one up and gave Bakshi some problems in the first round especially. Where Valsaint won, he did come off on 3 cards in the first round here, but it became pretty clear pretty quickly that Valsaint was kind of taking this approach, this whole flat-out, just pure aggression approach, because he just didn't have the toolbox to go the full 3 rounds here. And basically was in danger constantly throughout the entire fight. He was just grappling and wrestling and holding, and as you might expect, Valsaint started getting warnings from the judge, and he ended up losing a point partway through this in a warning against being disqualified as well. Bakshi was better all around, and even without the loss of point, would have taken this one. The men's light heavyweights, moving on here. This was some semifinal action here. Saw Arlen Lopez of Cuba defeat Lauren Alfonso Dominguez of Azerbaijan in a 5-0 sweep. Lopez advances to the gold medal match to face Ben Whitaker of Great Britain here. Now, he won gold in Rio as a middleweight, and he's going to be looking for another one here. Now, this is the second Cuban versus ex-Cuban matchup in Tokyo, and the Cubans have won both so far. Hang on, that sounds a little confusing, isn't it? So we have Cuban fighters fighting Cuban expatriates representing other countries. The Cubans fighting representing Cuba have won so far. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. Here, Dominguez, who was fighting for Azerbaijan, for those of you keeping score here, started really well in the first, but was playing good defense, landing enough sharp counters. But Lopez, stopped kind of loading up and taking measure of him at that point. And as we moved into the second, it was 29-28 across the board. And same once we got to the third here, this was just the Cuban took it. No, Lopez, the Q. All right. Anyway, moving on. Men's super heavyweight quarterfinals. Richard Torres Jr. of the United States took out Daniel Pero of Cuba in a 4-1 split. Torres won this one on pure hustle in the third round and just basically had the better engine and more left in the tank. Pero had an argument with some good shots landed early in the round. And I honestly, I did think that the judges would probably score it this way. 4 cards were even after 2 rounds, but they liked the effort on Torres both. Just, again, that extra hustle in the third. Both were exhausted by the end of the third here. As, they cut a pretty good pace for guys this size in the first 2. But Pero was just showing it more and was slowing down more, obviously. With Torres now guaranteed at least a bronze, he has broken the long cold streak for the U.S., who have not won a medal in this particular division since Riddick Bowe took silver back in '88, and the last gold they had was Tyrell Biggs in '84. Kamshaybek Kunkabayev of Kazakhstan took out Ivan Varyasov of the Russian Olympic Committee in a 4-1 split. Varyasov's going to be kicking himself here over the first round. where he allowed Kunkabayev to box just too comfortably. He spent too much time trying to figure Kunkabayev out. After that, Varyasov was, he was plenty competitive and plenty aggressive after that, but he got a bit of a slow start. And if he had split that first round up, he might be moving on to the semis. As a result of that slow start, though, he is not. And that, Graham, takes us through the day 9. That wraps us out for day 9. Day 10 going on. Well, not as we speak. They'll be asleep right now, but will be the morning session starting up later this evening, which I'm sure we'll all be watching with bated breath as we get closer and closer to these gold medal bouts.
I think it's 4 a.m. our time, so it's too bad. But I'll be watching the as I've always.
You've got TiVo. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And also, for those who may be watching, cbc.ca has an excellent website dedicated to showing all their televised footage, which includes all the boxing matches. But yeah, I'm.
If you're in Canada, that coverage is also on Prime Video.
Oh, interesting.
CBC's coverage is on Prime Video. Prime.
And I think the American broadcaster is NBC. But anyway, are you surprised by any of these results so far? I mean, we've been recapping an awful lot of fights over the past week.
I saw a few that I thought were going to be closer. The Zemkovoy fight, I thought he was going to do a lot better than he did, than a 5-0 walkover here. There's been no massive upsets over the last couple of days, though. At least nothing that I've seen. I think we haven't heard the last of the disqualification. I don't think we've heard the last of our knockout on the day. So we're going to be hearing some complaints and some challenges to some of these rulings that we saw from the judges and referees over, I guess, yesterday at this point in time. But if anything comes of it, we'll let you know for sure. But no, things have been going pretty much how we saw a lot of this going at this stage of the tournament.
Yeah, I think the cream is rising to the top, as they say. I enjoyed Fraser Clark's reaction to the disqualification. I thought he was a gentleman in the way he approached a very hot-headed Frenchman who was going a bit crazy.
You know what? I think Clark would have preferred, because he was going to take that fight anyway. Clark was going to win that on points anyway, and he obviously would have much rather this go to the judges on points rather than this disqualification. I mean, sure, take a point off him or something, but I don't know. Again, I don't think we've heard the last of it.
Well, at that point, though, if you might recall, the commentators were saying Fraser Clark may have been stopped by the ref because he was bleeding. So it was interesting when he turned around. The ref
said this before as well. They basically flip a coin once they see blood, whether or not they're going to let the fight keep going. It's a 50-50 based on what we've seen.
And I thought Martial's knockout was clean. I thought it was a good knockout.
Well, that's what I said. Anyone who's got, anyone who has YouTube, obviously they do if they're watching this, can go back and watch that fight. And, there was complaints. He was saying, no, I was back. He was behind that. It was a clean knockout from every angle. He just wasn't happy. And to be fair, at that point in time, what we may have been looking at was a concussion. Because he was, there was complaints, oh, no, this was behind the ear, but he wasn't too steady on his feet at that point either. So we may have been a little bit looking at someone who was a little confused and, may have been suffering a mild concussion at that point in time. So we may see that complaint dropped or just quietly walked away from in the next couple of days.
Yeah, there's no going back. Well, thanks very much for the recap, Christian. Appreciate your efforts. We're on tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow being Tuesday. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. Day 10 tomorrow, recap tomorrow, fans. And thanks very much, Christian. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Like, share, subscribe.